My story of how I came from being an East End gangster into knowing the wonder and the love of God. I was born in Walthamstow in the East End of London, and I was baptised a Catholic, but I was never brought up as a Catholic. I never went to Catholic school, I never went to church. At the age of about 10 I came home a normal night, and my parents told me that I had to choose who I wanted to live with because they were getting divorced. And I loved my parents so much, and I couldn't choose because the two people I love most in this world had just crushed me. So I think I made an unconscious decision inside that I wasn't going to love anymore, because I thought if you don't love, you don't get hurt. My mum ended up having a nervous breakdown and went to psychiatric hospital, and my dad remarried. And my stepmom thought the best way of bringing up a kid was beating them senseless each day, so that was my upbringing. At the age of about 13 I started stealing because I wanted someone to take notice of the pain that I was in. I expect I wanted someone to tell me that they loved me, but because my dad was a policeman, it just added to the beatings. At 15 I was put in detention centre, which is a youth prison. It's meant to be a short, sharp shock, but I actually thought it was better in there than being at home. So I left home at 15, and my only qualification was stealing, so that's what I did. And because I wouldn't love anyone, and I certainly wouldn't let anyone love me, I took the painkillers that go with that lifestyle. The drink, the drugs, anything to take away the pain of not having love in your life. At 19 I was in prison again, and there was another change in me. See, the way I dealt with all the abuse I suffered is I turned that abuse into anger. I was always lashing out, fighting. So I was put on 23-hour solitary confinement. And I seriously thought about taking God's greatest gift, my own life. But God must have been there even though I didn't know it, because I didn't take my own life. But I came out of there more angry and more bitter than ever. And I thought, what you want out of this world you have to take, because no one gives you anything. And I started bouncing around the East End and West End clubs of London. And I met some guys who seemed to have everything. They had the money, the power, the best drugs, the best girls. And I thought in my naivety, if I could obtain what they've got, that'd satisfy this emptiness in my heart, that'd fulfill me. So I started working for these people. But before very long I wasn't working for them, I was working with them. And these were the people who ran most of the organised crime in London. So to my shame I was involved in major drug deals, protection rackets, vicious crime of all sorts. So I used to have this designer leather jacket with a sewn in inside pocket, and I used to carry a machete in one pocket and CS gas in the other. And I don't tell you this to glorify the past, but I tell you this to glorify God and what He could do in someone's life. And I slowly obtained everything that the world says makes you happy. I had the penthouse flat, the sports cars, the 7 Series BMW. I was earning more money than I could spend. But inside there was still an emptiness, because no matter what I seemed to achieve, nothing fulfilled me, nothing satisfied me. Our late Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, he said the person who gives us the desire to search for Him in our heart is Jesus. And no matter what we receive from this world, we will never be truly satisfied or fulfilled until we have a loving relationship with Jesus. Well, I didn't have any personal relationship with Jesus, so I looked for the false gods. So I was on crack cocaine, smoking dope like it was going out of fashion, drinking really heavy, anything to kill that emptiness. I was also very promiscuous. I remember one girl I lived with for 6 months. She knew no more about me the day she moved out than the day she moved in. Because even though I was looked upon as being a hard man, inside I was a scared man, scared of being rejected for who I really was. So I wouldn't open my heart to anyone. I was working a club that we part-owned in the West End, and ended up hitting this guy, and I truly thought I had killed him. And as I looked at this guy lying on the floor, the only thought that came through my mind is I might get 10 years for this. And as I drove home that night, I thought, what have I become that I could kill someone and not even care? Because I used to care, I used to want to make a difference. But here I was just hurting everyone around me. And I never woke up one day and said I was to be evil. It was a slow progression of saying no to everything good and yes to everything bad. I came in this normal night and I became aware of a voice speaking to me in my heart. A voice every one of us knows, our conscience, God within us. And I'll be honest with you, I thought God was a nice little story made up to keep us from being bad. But here I was faced with the fact that God was real and it didn't really matter what I thought. And this wasn't a nice conversion. I didn't go running off to the daffodils with a Jesus Loves Me t-shirt on and all my hair grew long and I picked up a guitar on the way. This was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. I'd had people put guns to my head, I had been stabbed. But this was terrifying because that love that God had for me every day of my life on this day is like He withdrew it from me. Now people say that separation from God is like hell. Well, if that was hell what I experienced, I pray to God no one ever goes there. And I cried out for another chance, not because I was sorry, but I didn't want to stay in this desolation. And I felt lifted up. And I said the first prayer I'd ever said in my life. I said, up to now all I've done is take from you, God. Now I want to give. And as I said that prayer, that emptiness which had always filled my heart was suddenly filled with the love of God. And in that moment, I knew God could love someone like me. Whereas I'll be honest with you, up to that moment, I always thought I was worthless and it didn't matter whether I lived or died. The only person I knew had a faith was my mum. And I didn't see a lot of her in them days. I might bung her an expensive present when I felt guilty. But this night I went round and told her what had happened to me. She said to me she had prayed for me every single day of my life. And 2 weeks before this, she had prayed, let Jesus take me. If it meant me dying, then let me die, but don't let me hurt myself or anyone else anymore. Well, I know how much my mum loves me, and for her to pray that prayer, it must have broke her heart. But she saw the monster I was becoming. My stepfather, who died the other year, he gave me my first Bible. I had never read a Bible, I just opened it up randomly. And the first page it fell on was the prodigal son. And I knew it was me. I knew everything I had taken from God I had just wasted. And I also realised in the same way that prodigal son was starving, I was starving. Now I wasn't starving for food and my money hadn't run out. But whatever I had done in my life, it was to impress others. I had always worn a mask. I was never real who I was. And that's who I was starving to be loved for, who I was. St. Francis of Assisi, when he first found God, for 3 years he said the same prayer. Who are you, Lord, and who am I? Who are you and who am I? He must have been wearing a lot of masks. There's a true story of this man who takes his son to school every day. And every day he takes him to school, he says, I'll be here waiting for you when you come out. And every day the little boy looks through the classroom window and sees his dad waiting by the gates, goes running up and gets a big hug off him. And he says, I'll always be here for you. I never gonna leave you. Well, on this one day, there was a massive earthquake. I'm sure we all saw it on the TV and read about it in the newspapers. And by the time this father gets to the school's a massive rubble. And there buried underneath the rubble are all the kids. Well, this father starts pulling off the stones one by one. And some of the villagers help him, but most of them say they're all dead, you're wasting your time. After 24 hours of this father's hands covered in blood by the stones, everyone gives up, but he carries on searching, fighting back the tears and calling out his son's name. After 36 hours he hears a whimpering sound and he calls out Armin, and he hears the words Papa, Papa. And as he removes these last few stones, half the kids are still alive, and his son was heard to say, I told you my father would be here for me. I told you my father would be here for me. Well, how much that father loved his son, I realised God the Father loved me 1,000,000 times more, and he had never stopped searching for me, even under the rubble of my sinfulness.